All right, I'm calling to order the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee. We're at the Central Administrative Conference Room, and it's February 2nd, 2026, and it is 4:30 p.m. We'll go around and do introduction of members. Leslie, do you want to start?
Leslie Ann Powell, Director of Finance.
Robert Jones, community member.
Steve Tamborelli, community member, I think. Is that my title?
That's your title. Sherry Kennedy, school committee member.
Kenny Dubas, superintendent.
Jen Lima, school committee member. And Kevin Colby, student representative.
Carolyn Johnston, principal at Quinn.
All right, don't have any citizens' comments. Thank you. All right, next is the approval of the January 12th, 2026 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Can I have a
I'll
second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So the next I just had was to review the 26 budget year to date.
So you will notice you do not have any attachment for the fiscal 26 budget year to date. And that is because we had an issue with Munis last week. So the day after we had our budget presentation with the school committee, Munis went down. We did not have Munis, and we did not have it until after the long weekend. So we were, we had no access to any of the financial information while we had to reload the entire system. And then once it was up, we were in payroll week, so we focused on getting payroll because we lost a whole week of getting everything in payroll. So that left us no time, to be perfectly honest, to run a full fiscal 26 budget to actual with projections to have for this, because we had no way of pulling it. So I am in process of doing it. Once I have it done, I will send it out to the committee so that everybody will have access to it. We can either review it at our next meeting, or I'm happy to put together a memo and put the information out with any concerns and questions, and then take questions from the committee if anyone has anything specific that they're looking at. But I did want to make mention of that, so I wanted it to remain on the agenda so that people knew that we're a little behind right now in finance, because losing almost a full week of the ability to pretty much do anything in the system, and then having to redo, because when they did a restore, we ended up losing days worth of stuff that we had to redo. So we are a little bit behind, but we're working through it.
Could you maybe send out like a Google form like you did
Absolutely,
for the
yeah.
whole school committee? Okay. Yeah, because I feel like that was a good way did you find that a good way to answer back too? Because then like you had the question, who asked, and then the response.
So then what we'll do is we'll send out the file, right? Just kind of bullet anything that people on this committee should be aware of.
Yes.
And then they could forward questions back to you, and that way we have that done prior to the next meeting.
Yes, and I mean, my goal is to try and get it done as soon as possible, because it is a critical part of the budget process as well. So obviously, we were midstream on our projections through January when this happened. And so it's obviously not an ideal time or situation to have it, but we're working through it. So the goal is to try and get them done. I think that's pretty much our priority right now, because it is going to be critical to the budget process as well.
Okay.
Do those of us without NKSD emails have access to your Google?
Yes, because it'll be
Yes.
sent to you directly.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as it's
Yeah,
sent
you don't
to
need an
directly.
NKSD email address to access that. It'll be a Google form that will be shared directly to you.
And then it'll be a like a Google form that you could go back to. So then, like Leslie Ann could actually put all the answers in, and even if they're not at the same time, you could go back and look.
That seems to be working really well, I think, with the
Yes.
stuff for the budget, so I'm happy to do it that way. Makes it much easier for me too, so I can make sure I'm answering all the questions and that I'm not missing anything, because during the meetings, it's hard to keep track of all the questions, so I'm happy to do it that way if it works.
Yeah, maybe just we can call that the advisory committee. Older.
And at this point in the year, like the budget to actual, the year-to-date budget to actual takes a little bit longer, because it's the first time that we're seeing projections through the end of the year. So, I mean, I'm happy to send out just a true budget to actual, which I can run, which will just be like the ins and outs of everything. It doesn't have where we're looking, so it's just gonna show like this moment in time. I can send that out like right away for people to just kind of have an idea, but I think at this point in the year, some things get a little lost when you don't see the projection part of it, but
I agree, because you said there's some stuff that we don't get till the end of the year,
Correct.
so
Mhm.
if it's
skewed.
not included,
It
then
is very
then it
skewed,
looks
and
weird.
yeah, one of the questions that came up was, talking about the salaries. It's really hard to look if you're not understanding all of the pieces that go into how we look at the salaries from now until June.
Okay, does anyone, any other comments, questions? Okay, and then the next one was review the FY '27 budget, and so the first was fund balance allocations. And I just put under there turf and track estimation to make sure that was one of the things we discussed, but we can discuss other allocations too. I just wanted to make sure that was on there as one of the first.
Do you have like specific questions on the fund
Well,
balance
we have no
allocation?
data, so how can we have questions?
Well, I think we can have questions.
So I guess I did not put fund balance allocations on the agenda, so I assumed that was a request
It was
from
It was.
others, so if it
Yes.
was a request, what specifically do we wanna talk about? I'm happy to discuss it, talk about the data so that I understand.
I think what we've talked about in the past is that the allocations that are being put in every year are based on decisions that were made by prior school
Mhm,
committees.
yes.
And that this committee is in a good position to make recommendations on allocations to the current school committee about like what percentage, what dollar amount, whatever, do we wanna make new buckets, do we wanna keep the existing buckets, like that type of a conversation. So that's why I put this on the agenda.
Okay, I was not sure if we
Yep.
put it on there, so
Yep.
what I can do, if we'd like, I can see if I can get into the screen, I can look at like the last allocation that we did at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
Now that we have an audited financial statement, we know where we're gonna be kind of ending the year, we can look at that. I can pull it up and we can see, as of fiscal '26, the buckets that we have.
Yep.
And we can talk about that in that way. If I can get on here, will that,
Yeah.
Does that
I mean,
sound good?
Sherry, is that?
Yeah, well, I just put on, I think you and then Bob sent that, or one of you sent it.
Yeah, that
So-
was my thought, was
Okay.
just to kind of, like, broad strokes, not like, down to the penny, but like, these are the buckets that we've been allocating to, this is how much, but that goes back to like before I was elected, right? And so, are these still the buckets, what type of, percentages or dollar amounts do we wanna see moving forward, like, and just to open that up for conversation, if there are any recommendations that we wanna make to the school committee.
Kenny, did you get the feedback from the companies you reached out to?
So I don't have an exact estimate yet. We are using, the company that's out there right now that was doing repairs on the turf, they started out there in December. And then because of the weather, they had to stop. They are going to give us an estimate to look at. I worked with PAR, they were gonna bring in another company, and I chose not to have them bring in someone else when we already have GoPlay out there doing some work for us. So they are working on estimates. I don't have it yet, just because the work that they were going in to do the repairs, they started to go out there, and then we got snow, and because of the winter weather, they had to take a pause. So I don't have that yet, but
Are they
That is-
qualified to do the track too?
they were looking at both for us.
So the last note I have on that was from the September 30th school committee meeting, and you were supposed to be coming back to us with an estimate and a timeline, but it sounds like, that was October, November, December, January, 4 months ago. They still don't have anything?
Well, they don't, because when we brought them in to do the work, they were looking at doing that work, and then because of the weather, they had to take a pause, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Is
So
there a
I'm
timeline
waiting
on
on
when
that.
we might get that?
I don't have a time, but I will
Okay,
request that.
thanks.
Kenny, are they qualified to do the tennis courts? Because I had a question. In the budget drivers, it said resurfacing the tennis courts was $243,000. When it was put out to bid 8 years ago, the winter bid was $44,000, and that was a complete resurfacing of the entire tennis courts. I understand that was 8 years ago, but I'm not sure it's 5 times as much. So I don't know if you know the source of that 243, but That seems pretty expensive to redo the tennis courts.
Yeah, and what was the amount, you just,
Well, when it was redone in 2017, the winning
I think
bid was
it's the- I
$44,000,
updated
and that was
like
a high bid
10.
because the company gave a better warranty and stuff. So in the capital file, it said resurfaced tennis courts was
It
$243,000.
might,
So I don't know if they have that in their portfolio too, but
I can find out if that's possible to have them look at that. I know originally when I started looking at the tennis courts, I also consulted with the town because they had just redone some. And so we were basing off of what they had just done recently, on the number of courts they had with what we have, of just trying to get an estimate. But I can find out if that is something this other company can do or not do. And if not, bring somebody in, so.
and I was able to log in, so I have the fund balance. So what we have up here is the last document that went to the school committee. And so what it included were, in fiscal '25, so after we finished the budget cycle, there were things that we knew for fiscal '26 that we were going to use fund balance for, but we were essentially assigning those in fiscal '25. So, this section right here includes what was already assigned in those buckets, plus the dollars that we were assigning to them from the conversations from the budget meetings, okay? And then, so that's this top section. Then down below, what I included was based on that document from 2021 that Jen is referring to, that if we were to do the assignments that we had talked about from that document and that were recommended during the budget talks, these are the additional dollars in fiscal '26, once we were done with our audit and we knew what our surplus would be. These would be the dollars that we would then, an additional amount of money that we would then allocate.
So we didn't really use percentages, we used like an amount.
Actual dollar amounts, yes.
does it include, Leslie Ann, so your top number was 2% of the town and state aid for '25. So the '26 budget, town and state times 2% is 1.543 million. So it would seem to me you would need a roughly 115,000 allocation to maintain the 2% rule.
Yes, but, so if you notice though, we didn't, it's not fully allocated, so if you look down at the bottom here, we've only allocated $735,000 out of 2.3 million.
Right, but
Right.
my point is that would be an automatic adjustment.
Yes, this is the document from before we had our audit, before it was finalized. This is not the starting point for fiscal '26. This is where we ended as of fiscal '25 and with the approximation. So, and correct me if I'm wrong to school committee members, I don't wanna misspeak, but I have not been like officially given the okay to assign these items from the school committee. These were based off of, if the school committee says, yes, go ahead with what you recommended during budget time for fiscal '26, this is what they would be. But I do believe this still has to be brought to the school committee now that the audit is done, and you have to say, yes, go ahead and do that with this money.
So when you
Because
present
this
the audit
was
to us, this will be
if we
part
come
of
out
it.
with a surplus in
Yeah.
'26 and we have where we believe we're gonna be
Yeah.
ending, which now that the audit is done and we know is the case, I can now bring it to them.
Mm-hmm.
They can say, yes, allocate it, at which point I will present a new fund balance document with all the new allocations. So, this bottom section is what I recommended during budget time, but that can be completely different from what we recommend as a group to the school committee. Like, if we wanna change any of this, we can.
Correct. I would recommend adding the amount to bring it up to 2% of FY '26 town and school.
But that's
I think that's
a
an
given, like, I
automatic,
have
yeah.
to do that when I do that
Yeah.
document, so that's an automatic,
Okay,
yep.
but it just helps to know, even though it's a given, it would help. I mean, are we looking at items row 62 through 75? Is that what we're discussing?
I think what I had hoped to discuss was 62 through 75. Are those
Right.
still the categories that we
Mhm.
wanna have? Are there
Yes.
any others that we want to, like, bring into this that we should be allocating money to on an annual basis? Are the amounts that are being allocated annually when we have funds appropriate? You know, do we wanna change those? That was what I had hoped to have a discussion around.
Correct. Well, I would say, I would add 75,000 to row 68, because I think you're still gonna be way short, but at least the 150,000 commitment that was based on a 10-year, 1.5 million.
Can you say the type instead of the row for the people who are listening out loud? 'Cause
Yes, assigned to anticipated turf replacement.
Okay.
Thank you, Jen.
So one thing I do wanna note with the anticipated turf replacement is, so when we're looking at this 75,000 that we've allocated here, which is gonna bring what we would have in our capital line to 925, there is also additional dollars, I'm just gonna scroll up, and I apologize, I'm gonna go up and down. But there is, unassigned anticipated turf, which is row 37 in our document, I have to, is it, there's 150,000 also in, on the town capital side. So we would have 950, plus we have 150 that's already assigned on the town capital side, so we would have a total of over $1 million right now.
And
With
then
with just the
Well, is
75.
that given by the town, like it's not revocable?
No,
So, okay, I guess it would just make sense to me to have a total then. Like, what's the total balance?
Is there a way maybe, you know how maybe to put another column that would total everything from the town plus ours, like in a third column maybe? Do you know what I mean? So you could, rather than going back and forth, so you could actually see the total for each of the items?
I can certainly total it, but it's also important to know that sometimes the things that are allocated on a line for the town are not allocated to the same thing in that line for the school.
Oh, okay.
Like sometimes.
Not every,
It's not always like the same project. In this instance,
It
it's
is.
turf replacement.
okay. But sometimes it's something not below. Like, we're not adding money, only the town is.
Correct. Like it's a rarity that that's going to happen. So if you'd like me to total it, I can certainly.
Well, I would still recommend adding 75,000. I think even 1.5 million is not going to be sufficient. And, you know, it's FY, it's 2026. The field is coming up on 8 years old. When it was commissioned in 2018, we were told 10 to 12 years, with 10 being the more realistic.
So are you saying add an additional 75 to the 75 we have there? And
Yes.
make that line 150 and then above 150, so the total would be 300? For the FY,
I would have it so there's $1 million from the school side, plus the 150 from the town side. And then I still think if you get 150 over the next 3 years, you're barely gonna make it. But obviously we'll have to wait and see what Kenny says, but when you add the turf, the track, and then you get in there and find other stuff you may need, lighting, right, stuff, that you're gonna want. The intent of this was never to go back to the voters and say, we need more tax money for this.
But also to the intent was to make sure that we're keeping up on the maintenance of the turf and then the track, and then replacing of the turf and the track. You're also mentioning other things now too, right? This line item is specifically for turf and track, not other areas within the stadium. So,
Right, but
I
you've
think we
got
just gotta
capital
maintain
equipment
this.
associated with that, you got,
can I
I'm
back-
just saying, I thought 1.5 million was a very ambitious estimate in 2018. So I would, hence to be conservative, but I would say you should at least be over $1 million from just the school side.
Cause we're right at $1 million, okay. And that's why you're saying add another 75,
Yes, that's my recommendation.
okay. So, I have a crazy question. Should we wait and make recommendations or wait till is this gonna be changed once the audit is done and you relook at the numbers? Like, is that 75 you might actually
No,
automatic?
No,
Is
this
it-
is my recommendation, so this is what I had recommended, again, based
Prior
on
to
the
the
document
audit.
that was
Right.
done by however many people ago. So now that the audit is done and I know what our actual like ending fund balance is, I would like to update this document with all of our new allocations, with some of the changes that have come with dollars that we've already spent that have been allocated. But I don't wanna do that until the school committee says this is how we would like to allocate the funds. Because then I can take that document, put the allocations where they need to go so that we have a true representation of what we have in each of those areas, but
So do you wanna bring these $735,000 worth of allocations before the school committee, have those officially approved, and then revisit this after that?
what do we think is in the best interest of the time for the school committee? Like, does it make sense for us to talk about it, adjust these and say, you know, based on the recommendation? I have no problem going and presenting stuff to the school committee that if we have changes in
And maybe we should
recommendations.
go in with recommendations to the school.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
fine, 'cause I'm
I
just
would
thinking what
rather
we
have
need
us
the
recommend them
questions
and
for or
then say,
not.
this is what I had originally presented, plus a discussion from the
Okay.
budget and finance committee.
The historic intent is the school committee knows before it approves its budget to the town, how they've allocated the fund balance. So just in case, they need to come back and maybe do some stuff with it after the town council does its thing, you at least know what your priorities were. You don't wanna be mixing any adjustments that the town council sends you that you, school committee may decide to take from fund balance with also reprioritizing the fund balance. The historical intent is always that the school committee approves this before they approve the budget, so they know their priorities for their fund balance. So to me, it would make sense that the school committee actually should be approving this tomorrow, but at a minimum, February 10th, in concert with approving their FY '27 budget.
Okay, so I guess my first question is looking at the buckets that are up here, does anybody think that there is a bucket that we shouldn't be allocating money for, or anymore regularly, or is there something that we're missing that we should be considering allocating money for annually if we have a surplus?
Well, didn't we kind of talk about having a line just for CTE, like not, I know that says like technology capital,
Yep.
but I'm wondering just having one, you know how Shivali was saying maybe like a percentage of the money that comes in from the kids from CTE. So
Yeah,
should
like
we
a
maybe
CTE
have like a
line.
separate, could we have a separate item that just says like nothing specific CTE, but would be used?
Well, CTE,
With the CTE.
non-technology capital.
We can,
Yeah.
adding a line, so to speak,
Yep,
is easy. It's all right. I mean,
Yep.
if that's what we decide, we can absolutely add that for CTE. I think we have to determine, you know, what are the types of things that we're anticipating uses? Like, what are the anticipated usage and how much money do we think those things cost? Because what we don't want to say is, all right, we're gonna put $10,000 in there and it's not gonna do anybody any good. Like, you can't create a new program with $10,000. So what is the intended purpose? Is it just to, you know, fund new programs? Is it to augment existing programs?
I think her intent was
I would
for
say
new
for-
programs.
I
I would
thought it
say
was-
for both. What they're looking
Yeah.
for is funding that we can have to support the infrastructure for CTE programs.
yeah, so
And
like,
if
yeah,
we can start having a line in here where we can put savings in, over time, there'll be money in there for us to be able to allocate towards the CTE programs. For example, right now with the culinary program, we've got approved to have the culinary program as a CTE, so the Lutheran Pathway to CTE. But what we're doing now is we're looking at that, as far as looking at within the school building, where is the space for that? And how are we now gonna renovate the space for that program? And there's been ideas that kind of been shared, you know, where it's gonna go, but you need funding for that. So if we put a line in here to put savings into, then eventually there would be enough to put towards something for a program.
yeah.
And having goals, what that's going towards. So if, for example, it's the CTE, what's that cost going to be? How much do we need? If we wanna do some renovating or remodeling, that's gonna cost X. Now we're going to save for that or put that towards that. The other item that's on there that we added, I think it's really important, is the line for the non-bond capital improvement projects.
Mhm.
we have work we have to do in this district, that bond's not gonna cover everything. We need to be putting money aside for the maintenance of our buildings, and making sure that we can dedicate funds for that, so then we can set goals and say, okay, in 2028, it's gonna go towards a boiler, or whatever it may be.
So
Which we
may,
have on there, I think that needs to stay there. That was
so we
something-
have that one.
Yeah.
that's
Oh, we do
new.
right there.
We just
So do
added
you-
that this.
Yeah,
So do you
Shivali's
think-
ask was specifically for CTE capital investment, I just pulled up her email, and so that's what she's looking for, and I think it
And I think it
makes
makes sense
sense,
having
yeah.
that.
Would it be good to, Leslie, and to like have maybe add CTE program non-technology
Yeah.
capital, and then another line that says add CTE new programs, so that like there would be a line for new programs and a line for existing programs that need extra stuff?
I would just
Instead of
do
having it,
one-
or can we just do it all together
I
and
would
it's
just
fine if we don't have
I would
anything
just have
specific?
One line, and those funds are dedicated towards CT
Okay.
programs.
Yeah, I was just asking, because I know Leslie Ann was saying, like, do we need to be super specific about exactly how it's being used? So what, like, just add CTE, what would we wanna title it? 'Cause
So
I'm
it'll just
I'm
say
gonna put
assigned
this-
to CTE program, non-technological capital,
Okay, I got that.
non-technology capital.
Since you moved a bunch of structural technology capital into the general fund, should that be 300,000 then? Because right now you have a big chunk sitting in the general fund line where you upped it like close to 400 something thousand. So it seems to me you're double counting if you're leaving an extra 300,000 in fund balance.
So, they're actually two different things. So this was a conversation that I had with the supervisor of technology when we, this 300,000 was on the initial suggestion, the initial 2021, suggested fund balance use. What we moved into the budget for fiscal '27 is the Chromebook purchases, because that is something that if the district is going to continue to be a one-to-one district where we are going to do these replacements on the same schedule that we've been doing them consistently, then it becomes an operating, that's not a one-time purchase. Those are part of the operating fund. So we have moved that 300,000
Right.
to the general fund.
So
What
the
we are-
question is, what's this 300,000?
What we are finding is that a lot of the items that we have reached their, or will soon reach their useful life. So last year, you'll remember, we had the VX rail that went down, we had multiple servers that we had to replace. We had the admin laptops, now we have the teacher laptops. Things that aren't on the same schedule, that are not considered like continuous operating, but that we are going to have to build in. So we have a 5-year technology plan, that we are working to kind of update on a more, or like a, Kenny, would you call it like a rotating, like it's a rolling 5 years, right, not a straight 5 years. So that 300,000, keeping that 300,000 would allow us to have funds so that should we have something that reaches the end of its useful life midstream, not during a budget process, we have the ability to replace that. So if you notice last year, we had multiple things go down. It happened to be during the budget cycle, but there was almost $450,000 worth of stuff that was, one-time purchases. Actually,
Right.
no, some
And
of
how
that
is
was,
that- how is
some of
that-
that was the Chromebooks. So we'll say 250,000 was one-time purchases. So by having this in here, it takes the pressure off of us trying to decide that at budget time. We know if we have major replacements of our technology, we have a fund in place to be able to replace them.
Right, I understand that, but I'm saying now it's close to $750,000. So is that your 5-year straight line that every year, because again, how did you pay for those?
That 762
Right.
is a combination of what was assigned. So
Right.
that includes the 450 from fiscal '25 that we
Right.
assigned, that we know we had to purchase for the Chromebooks, because we took the Chromebooks out. So 280,000 of that 462 up above, or this 762, is Chromebooks from fiscal '25 that are not in there. So that 762 is representative of 2 years, some of which those items have now already been purchased. So there's the VX rail is in that 762, the servers that we've purchased.
Right, but I guess, again, what's a little confusing is it says total FY '26 if you assign column B. So is that not the actual amount?
that's from, at the time that this
at the time,
document
but
was
it doesn't
created,
represent
it's
what
not.
we budgeted to
So again,
spend out of that.
what's somewhat helpful for
No,
the school
no, that does
committee.
include what we budgeted, it just doesn't have what we've spent
That's what I
already.
mean, it
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
have the, it doesn't have the subtraction.
Correct,
At the
yes.
end of this
Right.
year, it won't be 762
Correct.
because we've reduced it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, right, so that's, would be helpful, I would think, the school committee to know what's the deductions.
Well, I did know that, so,
Well, I guess the committee doesn't know that.
well, you don't, I mean, you don't know what they do know or what they don't know. I mean, we've been through this with Leslie, so this is information that we already have. So I understand you aren't aware of it, and I appreciate you asking the question, but these are conversations that we had in the budget discussion last year.
But I think it's also focusing that we do need the 300,000 because we know we're gonna have stuff that we're gonna
Well,
need to
it'd be,
spend.
because we, you know, if we are asking our technology supervisor to put together a 5-year plan, we have to be able to build in some way to
Yeah.
fund that 5-year plan, and so I think that's
Yes.
where, you know, where that's coming from. I think, and I think we can all agree, that the things that we had to do last year with using our fund balance was, one, we did have fund balance to use, and there was a large amount of things that needed to be purchased.
Mhm.
That is, to me, I think, probably an anomaly. And the goal is not to do that
Again.
every year or
Yeah.
in this budget cycle. So we wanna be able to start being a little bit more proactive with this, but that's, again, that number is not a number that Chaz came up with or that I came up with, that was a number that another school committee came up with at a different time, so if we don't think 300,000 is appropriate, we can certainly reduce it.
I had a question about curriculum. I know we've talked about this multiple
Mhm.
times. Like, I get curriculum is an operating expense, we can't put it in there, but these big upgrades where we have to purchase like a
Mhm.
full cycle, is that something that we can like justify
As a one-time purchase.
as a one-time purchase? And something that we could put a little bit of money aside for each time so that we're not getting hit with these $200,000 expenses?
So, yes and no,
Okay.
is the answer to this. So it really depends on how we look at it and how, like, as a district, we wanna operate. So, in the grand scheme of things, when we purchase a curriculum, so we'll use the social studies curriculum, for example, that is for a 6-year set, it's a 6-year program. So, in essence, we should not have to buy social studies curriculum again for 6 years. We'll have to buy things that go with it, but
Mhm.
not to the tune of the 240,000 that curriculum is. That being said, so that is our one-time purchase that we're using funds balance for social studies.
But for
The
somebody,
next
yeah,
year, we have science that we have to replace, so then there's another, so in essence, we are using it for one-time purchases, but they're going to happen every year, probably, for the next 4 years
Yep.
because of the cycle that we're on
cycles,
with
yeah.
curriculum. And then we'll finally get to the last one and we're gonna be back at social studies.
Yes.
So, we certainly can say, these are unfunded mandates, these are, you know, these are coming from RIDE to have, or, you know, universally to have these like high-quality curriculums that cost a lot of money. This, we can, as long as we know that it can support it, and for the time that we know it can support it, but with the understanding that at any given time, if we don't have a fund balance, we have to
it
be
has to be
prepared
bought, right?
to be still buying them, like, we don't have an option. So if we're going to make that choice, we have to be very, very careful with how.
We shouldn't be changing the curriculum every 4 years either. Like, we're still going through that process with RIDE, with the high-quality curriculum, and we've done math, we've done ELA, at the elementary, middle school level for ELA. And now we're doing science and social studies. But it shouldn't be, okay, well, we've had the new math curriculum now for 5 years, let's go get new math curriculum. Like, that's not the way it should be, because
Right.
that's a lot on teachers to expect to make that change. But you may have to make an update somewhere along the line with the types of resources, tools you have.
Mhm.
But you shouldn't be changing the curriculum resources that you're using completely every 4 or 5 years.
Correct. So, and that's why I
Like
say,
Bridges just updated. So we.
Right, so if
last
they get a
year,
revision, we might have to purchase
Revision.
that revision, but we're not gonna change the
That
curriculum
curriculum.
resource, the tool
and
that we're
it
using.
certainly shouldn't come at as steep of a price tag as when we are initially rolling out the full
Mhm.
curriculum. I mean, that, you're always gonna have stuff, like with our science curriculum, you're always gonna have replacement kits and different stuff that we have to have in order for the curriculum to work.
Right.
Those will all be operational, that's, we're gonna
Yeah.
see in the, in the operating budget. But I do know that having a line, a curriculum line would be healthy and proactive for us to do. because we know we have these things, that these, you know, mandates that are here and we have to do something with them. And then at some point, if we feel like we're in a comfortable place, then we do a reallocation, we do a reassignment and say, okay, I think we're in a good place with this curriculum, you know, we don't need this here, or thank goodness we have this, but it's going to be one of those things where, how much do you wanna set aside? Because if it's $200,000 for one curriculum, and we're gonna be, you know, we know we have one that we have to buy, then there won't be any money in it for the next year unless we have a surplus
Right.
of some, so.
I mean, I would think that would be something, right, Ken, that like you could conceivably sit down and say, over the next 10 years, we're anticipating to roll out 3 new curriculums, and that cost would be X and divided by Y, right?
Right.
Actually, Kenny, would it make sense to start having someone investigate the kind of large library portfolio like Follett and other have? It's getting to the point where essentially, for a fixed amount, you have access to pretty much the world of textbooks. And assuming they, which I would assume, but again, a little research, assuming they have those books, then every year you're refreshing it for a fixed cost. It becomes a very predictable curriculum cost. And it's a per student number, and there's a pretty wide flexibility for teachers to pick from. In fact, I think that's something the state should actually just do and make it
So I am
available
not
to all.
familiar with what you're talking about.
So you can engage with, say, Follett or whatever, and they have the universe of textbooks. And essentially, for a flat fee, teachers can get whatever textbooks in that world they want on an annual basis. So if something revises, it's already there, and you're paying just a flat fee per student. The trick is that it
So
covers.
you're not paying the vendor for the curriculum, you're
No.
paying Follett instead?
Yes, and
But-
they're costing it over economies of scale with all their vendors. And so the rub becomes, is the portfolio world sufficient to meet your needs, which in the past was sort of a no, but I think increasingly is a yes, and it includes both physical and e-textbooks, although they're shifting obviously more to e-textbooks, but it may or may not be a solution, but it increasingly is for more schools. So I think it's worth at least
Yeah, I mean, it's something we
investigating,
can look, I'm not
because,
familiar with that, so it's something we can look into to see if they carry the books that we are using or books that we might need. to
because then it
purchase in the
becomes
future.
predictable. It's your number of students times this fee, and I guarantee you, over the life of thing, if it covers, it's gonna be a lot cheaper than amortizing different books over 6 years.
But would RIDE need to approve any curriculum on there
That's what I'm
that
saying,
we
like,
could
So-
use? Do you know what I'm saying?
that
Like,
we're using with these curriculums,
You
part
would have
of
to
like a
make sure
curriculum
that they
package.
carry the high quality curriculum that we're allowed to use, right?
Right.
So,
Right,
right
Right.
now,
but the
we've got
teachers
to
couldn't
source
just
that.
pick anyone.
So-
But-
Well, they could, but you would want to ensure that the portfolio includes the curriculum you have chosen, which again, increasingly is becoming true. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. What I'm saying is, to the extent that is becoming more of a model, you know, like 50 years ago, you would say, well, there's e-textbooks, right? So this is becoming more of a model because it's a very predictable cost, and with more economies of scale, the vendors can actually make that happen. I would again, just like I think there should be a single LMS for the whole state, and the state should just pay for it. But I'm just saying, it's probably worth the 1 hour phone call to some vendors to see if it might be a fit, because if it is, you definitely fixed your curriculum costs. It becomes just a straight line, budgetable item, and you're not worried that in this given year, the social studies textbook went up $200, right? So,
Because isn't it the way we are now, though, like the teachers have one set of hard textbooks that the kids can use in the class, and then this
We
would
do.
not have any.
Well, no, that's
you
not,
could
no,
get
that's not what
physical.
he's
Okay.
saying. What
Oh,
he's
right.
saying is, instead of us going through
Each
the
single
specific
one, okay.
curriculum companies to purchase through them,
Oh, you
if
purchased
Follett offers those books at a bulk rate or a discount, we could be going through Follett and actually saving money.
Okay.
We just need to find out, does Follett actually carry it?
And there are
Because
other
it's
vendors, I
that
don't wanna
big,
say,
so-
I have no connection to
I mean,
Follett,
we'd have
I
to
wanna
see
make
if
that
that's even
clear.
possible.
It's an interesting
know.
concept, I haven't heard of that, I mean, I didn't know Follett's an example of.
Do they carry just higher ed, or do they also carry?
No, they have a K-12 division,
So like our picture books and things that
correct.
might need,
They have art supplies, and again, I'm no connection to Follett, there's probably other companies in this space.
Mm.
What I'm saying is, as an alternate model, it's something I think is worth
Mhm.
your director
Right,
of
it's
curriculum
worth
to
looking
look
into to
at.
see if that's, ends up
because
being a way for us to purchase.
If it has your
what we need at a
universe of books
less
that fit
cost.
your curriculum,
Mm.
it definitely will become a predictable and probably cheaper expense.
I
just, can I just add to that, to that point, if we put in a line item for curriculum, I'm thinking, you know, at the elementary, where the books are getting ruined like over time. So you might not need to buy a mass 26 for one classroom, but each year, 2 or 3 are like falling apart. And there's not always funds to like
Place those couple.
replace those few at a time in each classroom instead of bulk, and sort of do it that way. You know, Jody has made it happen, but I don't know that happens.
So are we thinking that would be, it would be good to have a curriculum line?
I think it would be.
Yeah.
And just one thing that I know is just a constant theme, and in this instance, we only have 75,000 going to it, but our fleet upgrades. So as was evident last year with our purchases for facilities, and as we see with some of our buses, like we have an instance right now where we have a bus that the repairs are so extensive that it doesn't even make sense for us to keep this bus. It would be more cost effective for us to buy a new bus. And with the rising cost of those buses and how long they take and how hard they are to get, and I mean, I was talking about minibuses in that instance too, not the bus contractors, but one of our minibuses. I just feel like having 75,000 as a fleet upgrade doesn't even come close to touching what we need now for vehicles in any of our fleets, not just the buses. So I do think that this is an area, because this is not something that we have to think needs to be in the operating budget, because we're not just buying a bus every year. But we do need to really look at this and say, what makes sense when one minibus costs $100,000, or one van, or like F-150 for our facilities department is $75,000. I mean, that's gonna get us barely one vehicle. So my recommendation would be that we need to really think about that and start, I mean, the expectation is we are always gonna need buses and we're always gonna need vehicles to do work around the school. So we need to make sure that we're prepared when we need
Yeah, I
them.
would agree, but I guess the point is, why aren't you buying at least one type of vehicle a year? Just to keep the fleet age on a more consistent basis. I agree 75 is probably too low,
Mhm.
but wouldn't that just be on a normal schedule to buy a bus or a van every year?
I don't wanna speak on behalf of transportation because I do not have, this deep fundamental knowledge of the buses in our fleet.
I would say that, yes, that would be
But I do know
ideal
that.
for us if that is something, just knowing what I know of transportation with the buses we have and the ages of the buses.
Yes.
That we should have a plan. I know that's something that I've talked to Michelle about, we put in this past year. But if we were to have something like that in there, that would help us to be able to make sure that we're keeping the fleet at an appropriate age.
And, cause I don't think it's necessarily just, that's why I like that it says fleet upgrades in there, because that upgrade doesn't necessarily mean buying a new bus. But there are like significant things that can be done to some of our existing buses that will extend the life of those buses and make it better, make the fleet better in general, that we just don't have right now. $75,000 is not gonna be enough to do that. Or, talking about things where it might not necessarily be the bus, but it might be, okay, we're thinking about doing vans, because vans we might be able to bring some students back in-house that are currently on statewide. It's not necessarily a bus, it's a van, it's not something that we're gonna need to replace, every year for 5 years even. But again, they cost $82,000. So, right now, there is money, you know, already in that line that we assigned in 25. Although I think some of that was reallocated to the redistricting plan.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
so we
Yep.
allocated 75,000, so that'll move around a little.
Yep.
And there was some money left in there from the town portion. So there are funds in there, I'm not saying that we only have 75,000, but my recommendation would be that we need to put at least 150,000 in there, so that we could buy a bus and a truck if we needed to.
And
Leslie,
so,
do you the reappropriated to fund balance for 26, do you anticipate needing to use that?
Meaning the actual, just the reappropriation?
Yes,
Or the,
because I assume the 500,000 you're only gonna draw if you need to.
yes, so what we are doing, which is standard, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew, so we are tracking, so when you see my projections, I track at the bottom, what was an anticipated expenditure or draw from, as a reappropriation of fund balance, and as we get to the end of the year, based on where we're ending the year, those reappropriations will happen as needed.
Right.
For any of them,
but-
including the $500,000.
But currently you have not touched that,
No,
because again, that could be more funds
Right, and-
available to
and-
redistribute.
correct, and typically you won't do those reappropriations. I know in prior years, they did them at the beginning of the year, they carried the money over, and then what happens is the auditor essentially just puts the money back. It just rolls right back, and it's just a straight in and out. So my thought was, I do recognize it right now because of how we have to do it, so when you're looking at my projections, you're looking at different budget to actuals, it is recognized as revenue because it is an approved amount of money that's been brought over, but that's the only one that I'm doing that for. Everything else, I'm showing kind of in a different line item as, you know, as of right now, we don't need to draw on these funds, but if we needed to, we've used 328,000 of the 2 million that we said we were gonna use. And as you get closer to the end of the year, you can say, okay, it's very evident that we're definitely gonna need to draw on these, and so I kind of take them in, I think the reappropriation will probably be it's the last draw of money that actually gets moved over. So you'll move it over for all the individual items, and then if your revenues and expenses supported themselves without having to do the main 500,000 reappropriation, then you don't do it. Does that answer your question?
It does,
Okay.
thank you. I get, there used to be, and maybe I don't see it, there used to be an athletic capital besides the turf and track line.
Yes.
Is that not there, or?
So again, when I made my recommendations based off of the budgeting, I didn't include that. But there is one, and from that original fiscal 21 document. But we can certainly, that could be added.
Well, but when we made that recommendation, that came off, but was there something else? I'm trying to recall.
We
from the
moved it to
conversation.
turf and track,
Okay,
because the way,
so we just moved the funds over.
yeah. Mhm.
is there other stuff you think,
Well, based on
That
what
would-
Kenny said, that that's the
tennis
turf and
court.
track, there's other stuff.
so should we have a line you think?
Because then that, I
maybe-
believe in that original document, and I will go back and look, I don't wanna be misspeaking, but I think at one point either the turf and track or athletics like fell off, like it wasn't, it was only up until a set amount of money, and so I combined them, so that,
I would definitely recommend having an athletic capital fund outside of the high school athletic complex.
Right, cause then that could be used at any of the schools, correct?
Well, get gyms, floors, and all that stuff.
but Kenny, would those fall under non-bonded capital improvements?
I mean, it could,
could,
right,
it
but,
could, I mean, I
You
think
lose
right
the
now that
visibility.
line is, you know, we're saving for specifically what we've already identified, it's definitely more that we'll identify as we, you know, throughout the years. It could go under there, I mean, we can specify that more of what that's for, we just don't want someone to look at that line and say, oh, there's X amount of money, let's go put it towards something else, when really, that line's being saved for the current projects we're working on right now.
I think having an athletic capital line is a good idea, cause it's not just the tennis courts you mentioned, right, like other things, like there are expenses big and small that come up.
Do you have, I mean, for any of these, do we have like dollar recommendations that we'd want to put forward to the school committee, so?
I heard this is what I heard increase the fleet from 70 to 150,000.
Okay.
I heard increase the turf to 150,000.
Yeah, and then we just add the CTE program non-technical capital. Like,
Yep.
do we wanna put an amount that we think that should be?
Well, we're putting, I mean, I'm not putting anything in for capital, I mean, I don't know. We used to put in, I think, 25 regularly, right? So, I mean, is 25 to start? Like, is that,
Is there a target we're supposed to be staying under for total?
So we have our reserve, that 2% reserve that we have to keep, that's obviously for emergencies, and then, what is the percent? Off the top of my head now, I can't
2%.
remember, there's a certain percent that we don't want to go below.
right?
2%.
Is it the 2% that we allocate?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 1.5 million based on 26.
And we have, right now, our starting fund balance for fiscal 26 is 9.035 million.
Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, but that, again, that's
Before all that,
before all
yeah.
of this gets worked in. So we essentially had like a $2.3 million surplus, but we allocated at the budget time last year, like $2 million into fund balance and assigned all of that, so that, you know,
So-
it's,
So adding,
so we're really somewhere around 6.
adding 75 here, 75 there isn't gonna, okay.
I almost think we should add more to the non-technology capital for CTE, just because what if we have a new CTE? Do you know what I mean, like, versus, it's not just an upgrade to a current,
I think we can do two things, right? Like a recurring recommendation and a this year recommendation.
Mhm.
Like this year, because we know we have extra, we're recommending we seed it with X, but like moving forward on an annual basis, our recommendation is a base level of Y. Does that make sense?
yep,
Mhm.
do you have a number?
Well, they had asked for 5% of the tuition they generate, so that would be somewhere between 75,000 and 100,000.
So say 100 this year, 75 moving forward.
Yeah, I think that sounds good, cause I feel like the CTE programs we wanna keep increasing,
Mhm.
so I feel like it's a good place to fund.
I would recommend giving some to the library and media centers.
I'm sorry, so did you say 100 this year and 75 each year after?
Yeah, I'm writing all this down, and I think
Okay.
I'm gonna kinda make a motion,
Okay.
so then I'll have it all, so we can all agree, I figured that might be the.
I agree with you, Bob. Before we get there, can we talk about the
Curriculum.
Yeah, can we do, yeah, I was just
and
gonna say the same thing,
athletic?
like what you think we should, same thing what Jen was saying, like seated and then going each year.
Kenny, I'm gonna defer to you on the curriculum line.
Okay, hold on, just looking something up.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mhm.
Yep.
Because I don't know about this. But the ones that are blank, so you have like the last one with the total assigned to other capital needs and requirements, parking lots and sidewalks, as well as classroom repairs. This was just like you didn't recommend putting more into those accounts, or those accounts like you don't have any in that.
So, in the instances that we have here, we don't have any reserves, so they were accounts that had reserves in them previously. We have since used them for different things, and so now we don't have anything that we've reassigned to those lines, but that's not to say that we can't.
Oh.
Or that if something came up and we needed funds in one of those areas, that we can't assign money to it.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's an important point. Like this stuff down here is like, we call it like a soft allocation. Like we're saying we wanna have $700,000 assigned to technology, but like if a giant sinkhole opened up in the parking lot and like swallowed all the cars, we could move that money down to it. So it, just cause we say it's there, doesn't mean it has to stay there. I didn't jinx it.
Thank you so
I feel like I've been seeing that on the news.
I don't have time for parking, yeah,
I know.
I'm trying to see if I can find the document, but if I don't wanna pull everything under the sun up and have it visible to the public. I was looking for the document to see what the athletics budget was originally. I know you have it, cause you have sent it to me.
That's what I thought it was too. Let me see if I can find it.
Can you ping me on this again? So I can open this up on my computer,
Can I do what?
share this, is this in the drive?
No, it's not my computer,
'Cause
sorry.
I can't find that to open,
That's why you couldn't find
the
it.
only reason I'm asking, I can't read it from here. So what, I'm just thinking curriculum, I'm just trying to think of a number, I mean, when we look at the budget, you know, we're around like 30,000 for putting in funds for curriculum. So,
Oh, man, I ruined it.
Okay, you have in
If-
your, yes, you have 147,000 in your proposed
Our
27.
social studies curriculum is $148,000, I think.
Right,
147,
yes.
So I guess it's how much, like, this would be more like books that are, extra books are needed, or like some
But see,
crazy
tho-
upgrade.
those are the items that should be in our operating budget, so
Okay.
those line items should be there. I would say, our curriculum is usually somewhere between $150,000 to $300,000, depending on what you're getting. So social studies curriculum is coming with, doesn't have as much as like a science curriculum. A science curriculum has to have all these other things that go with it, like it's got workbooks, and it's got different kits, and it's got, things that have to be replenished. Those are, well, the replenishing stuff would be year to year, but, and I would think like math has stuff that gets, like, again, it has like, and I this is bad, I
Yeah,
actually know
the
which one it is, but like
hands-on.
Foundations has stuff that we have to buy like
Mhm.
all the time, like we have like durables and things,
There's a lot of
like,
pieces
like,
to it.
yeah, there's a
like
lot
the
of different
bugs.
stuff.
Yeah.
So the range for a curriculum can vary
Right,
based
'cause
on,
to replace a foundation kit, it's not very expensive for one kit, but when you're looking at doing it, you know, it's,
like across the district
Yeah.
for all the, for whatever grade levels it is, for
It's a
all
lot.
the students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it
So-
strikes me, you're
so-
just trying to cover, if there's a worst case year where you can't fund something.
Right. I mean, I would start off by putting, if we can, at least 100,000 in there.
Start with 100, and then what would we wanna do each year?
Because I'm just looking at all the different categories we have here for curriculum. If we look at if we look at a total, we're just looking at the curriculums line in itself. I mean, we're at 600K,
Mhm.
right? Obviously, that's not something we put, you know, say every year comes out of here, but if we can start with 100,000, and putting in 100,000 every year, we would then have funds in there to use when we have to do a curriculum rollout.
So, seeded, like, start with
Because-
100,000 and then every year put 100,000.
I would, at
Okay.
least.
And then the next one we need to do is the athletic capital one.
Well, I'd say a minimum, if you know that
Yeah, I
think
found
tennis
it.
courts was 44, 8 years ago, you're talking at least
Now we're talking
75, 80. So I-
200 or more for something like that, so.
So the last one that was approved was in 2022, and we had athletic turf and we had athletic lights. And the turf was,
And the lights replacement is, that line is still in there, it just doesn't use
yeah,
dollars.
the turf was 150 out through fiscal year 26. The lights were 100 out through fiscal year 26. But there was no, in this one, no other athletic.
So I must have been thinking about the lights,
The
and that's,
lights.
what I was talking about
Yeah.
when I said it kind of like, there was like a term to it, so I didn't add it back in. The only one I kept was actually the turf, because I know we need to
Because
keep
the
putting,
lights
I know
we
we need to
didn't-
keep funding
Right,
money in the
but there
turf.
used to be athletic, I mean, the school committee 2022 may have decided to.
No, I went back a couple years and there was, it was just turf.
Right, but I'm saying, you go back to pre-COVID.
I went back to 20, I can go back to 19.
Say you do add it, you can always take it back out if it doesn't work,
Mhm.
so.
And I think it's important to know, like, just as reference and for the public that might not know this, so we're making these recommendations, these allocations, but money only goes into these line items if we have a surplus at the end of the year, so, and also the flip side of that is that if the district were to ever run into a deficit, this is where the money comes from to offset that deficit. So if we have a year where we, our expenses were higher than our revenues, whatever that difference is, comes right out of our fund balance. So we might have these numbers allocated out, but you could have a really tough year and a lot, and the next thing you know, that $735,000 that we allocated for fiscal 26 is gone in fiscal 27. So it's really tough. And, you always have to kind of go into it with the thought that, like, yes, this is what we would like to have, but it is not a guarantee of funds.
So the other ones in the last one that were approved were bus fleet, parking lot, physical plant, security upgrades, playground, technology, academic capital, CTE, academic capital library, auditorium, and classroom.
And those are all
Yep.
the line items that are on there now.
So do we think athletic, like, we're starting with 100,000 and then each year, just for things like the tennis court or, you know? just-
Right, because, again, I'm looking at 2019, or 2018. They broke it out much more detailed. So there was the high school tennis court repair, 44. They were already budgeting for the feasibility study, so I would say you need at least 100,000 athletic capital.
Okay.
And then year over year, we wanna do like 25,000, like something a little
25 is
bit
good,
more
yeah.
conservative. And then I think the only other, oh wait, I know Bob had wanted to say something before I jump onto another thing.
Was there another one?
Well, I just think, you know, we've had all this talk about the playgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But then also the fact that the money that you're seeing in this playground now does not exist because we have used it for a playground. So this is
So
a
we
little bit
probably-
misleading because we then used it for exactly that. We have built a new playground, so
So maybe we need to put,
we
A
would
seed
probably need
back
to
in?
reseed that if possible, because we
Mhm.
have spent it
Okay.
and we had a
Well,
playground that was
right.
particularly expensive.
You have a
because of
school
it.
committee policy that requires 2 reports every year on the
Mhm.
playground. So I would assume you would just take the last one, see what the dollar amount assigned to those needs were, because I assume you're talking about, it all went to Davisville Early
Mhm.
Learning Center, right?
Mhm.
So I would look at that semi-annual report and look at the average of,
did we have dollar amounts?
There was no
Davis
dollar amount
Ville.
assigned to it.
All
We
right,
just
I
had
thought
it.
there
Yeah,
was
no,
a-
there was no dollar amount assigned to it, but playgrounds is an ongoing thing, so I think
It's
it makes
a
sense to
safety
have,
report
yeah.
based on what needs to be
Mhm.
replaced.
Right,
And
so-
some of the items were done internally that a facilities department might need fixed.
Wait,
But
thanks.
the actual replacement of equipment, that's why we were putting in the
Yeah.
100,000.
but if you're looking at Davisville.
And we based it off of like what
Early Learning
equipment
Center as
costs.
a sample,
But I feel like that's unique in that we were kind of starting from scratch and we had like nothing there. We had to go do everything down to the
right,
What's
so
it
my
called?
point would be is
the
that's,
floor.
that's
It's
the
not
worst
flooring,
case.
but you know.
Yeah, like we had to change,
So you take like 1/7 of that, 1/8 of that.
And that's also a
Well,
smaller
you don't need it at the high
playground
school
comparison
thing,
to
so
what
Yeah.
you
Right.
1/6
at the
of that.
elementary schools.
I mean, I almost think we should at least start with 100,000 to reseed it, just because even if you need one equipment replaced, it's like
It-
20
it's
to
a lot of money.
$30,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah,
Equipment's astronomical.
Okay. So
And it-
we
how
could do
much
one or
did
two
we
things.
have in there before we
I
wiped it
think-
out?
So we had, I wanna say
We
there
had
was
like
75, hold on, I'll scroll
75,
up.
yeah.
So the playground had 75, hold on, I'm gonna scroll up one more time. Because we had it in there. I
Yes.
believe the playground had, there was $50,000 in that line. We then recommended in 25, because we had a surplus in 25, we have to remember that, so we added $25,000 to that to get it to the 75. And then we had $25,000
From the
already
town.
allocated from the town.
Yeah.
And then with the thought of then putting in an additional,
That's what we did, we put an additional
an
10,
additional-
10 or change, 10 and change, or I thought in to do it. But yeah, we had 100, which we wiped out.
Yeah, however we were doing it, we're gonna end up with $100,000 in there, I think is what we had.
Yep.
Because then we were $50,000
Yeah.
shy and we had to reallocate
Yep.
that, so.
So yeah,
It's
sure,
all
I would
up.
agree, put 100 in there to put it back to where it was, and then maybe like 25 moving forward, which was what the allocation had been.
Mhm.
I almost, it's just my gut, I think we should do it more, because I think a lot of the PTOs are paying for playground equipment without anyone, I mean, the town, I mean, we know.
Right.
Because they have to, obviously, but I feel like a lot of the PTOs are, and then they're just putting it as a line item in their budget, saving money every year, anticipating, so.
I also
I
think
think-
that some of the PTOs are having expensive fundraisers and knocking it off in one fell swoop. So like if we're allocating capital, maybe that one can wait a little bit longer.
I only think there's certain elementary schools that are doing that. The ones that,
Yeah, but that's why if we have $100,000 in there, right, then the ones who aren't doing that, we can dedicate the funds there first.
sure, or we should
Yeah.
be equal to all the
Oh,
elementary
100%.
schools. So that's why I
Yeah.
feel like just
No,
taking it off in
100
general from them, that's why, I mean, we can do
100% we
25.
need to
But
have
that's why I was
some
like, maybe we should do a little more,
Yeah.
cause I feel like every year stuff needs replacing. Why don't we split it into 35?
Okay.
Wait, what did, I missed that one.
35, I'm gonna write this all for you
Okay.
in the minutes.
Okay.
All right, is there any other things we should add or change?
You had us.
Did we land on a number for curriculum?
Yes, 100,000 to start, and then each year 100,000.
Okay, and what about the media center?
We didn't do the media, that's right, sorry, Bob, we're back to you, the media center.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important.
Are we talking
So do you have a
like
suggestion?
district-wide library media or,
Well,
or something in
well, we have a
particular?
line, reserves.
I honestly think you have, again, a policy about asking principals to report on playgrounds. You should probably have a corollary, have principals report up on their media center needs.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate. If we do that, then why wouldn't we have them reporting on
Science
other
rooms.
areas?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
I just think we gotta, I can understand the whole thing with the playground for safety reasons, and
But
that's
we're
why we
getting, we're
have.
getting the upgrades, right,
reports.
with the
So we do,
state.
and we are,
the
and that's,
elementary.
that's part of our capital, so
Yeah.
we are going to,
Elementary.
we're renovating all of the media centers at the elementary level. Wickford Middle is gonna get a new one when they build the building, and we're redoing the media center at the middle school. So over the next few years, all of that's getting done. I can understand why you'd wanna have a line in here so that you're constantly updating, but we are going through that process right now through our CIP.
So you're thinking we need more than 25,000?
Well, if you believe that the bond funds are gonna, that's gonna make the priority, I know it's on the current priority list, but
I mean, I think we should
Do you think-
continue to allocate 25,000 like
I
we
do
have
too,
been, yeah.
but I was just wondering if you, I think, Bob, you were saying you thought we should increase it.
well, no, I'd probably start with 25 until
Okay,
you
'cause-
see how the bond funds actually play out.
Alright, so you,
Over
so
the
I'll
next
add the
4
20, I'll
years.
add that to this because I don't think I don't know if that was on the library meeting, was that on the list, Jen, from, I thought that was one that ended in 26, so I might not have included it when I did it. I don't even
Hence
actually,
why it
I don't
doesn't
even
have
know if
one.
it was on that list,
But I get it, because you don't have it to assign to FY '26.
right,
I got it.
but I can.
And we do still have some money in there, correct?
Let's scroll up. So we have 25,000 on the town side, and then we have 25,000. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Hold, please.
Actually, yeah, we were allocating $100,000 each year for the library, so that should be on there.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Well, we have, so I just wanna make sure I have the right line. So already assigned, based off of what we did with $25, there's 25,000 allocated from the school, 100,000 allocated from the town.
Yep.
Then
But when you go down, we don't have anything
I
in
didn't,
FY
right, so
'26.
I didn't have anything new to allocate, so that's why it says total if assigned, that 25,000 is all that's there, cause that's what's up above.
Yep.
So we would have to then
Add the 25.
add the like for 26, whether it's 25,000, 100,000, whatever we normally allocate.
So
So-
the last approved allocation was $100,000 each
Okay,
year.
Each
Yep.
year.
Mhm.
Okay, so then we would add 100, so then the total that we would have would be 125,000.
So, all right, so looking at that too, so that means there's nothing for auditorium repairs or classroom repairs going in FY '26.
Going in FY '26 because we have.
But we have the 25
because we
and the
had-
50 that will still be there.
Correct, but
Okay.
also because we had talked about needing to start thinking about doing those like assigned to non-bond related items, we needed to have.
So those might have moved, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So
But-
even like, for example, parking lots and sidewalks could fall under what we have for capital improvements.
Okay,
So we have a line there, we don't have anything dedicated specifically to it, but that could be coming out of the line for capital.
So I think it's good that we're trying to also streamline how many categories we have.
I also think that by us doing that this year, making this recommendation, making the assignments, like, it's an exercise that really should be done every
Annually?
year.
Yeah.
It should be done every year, so yes, we're working off a document that in 21 they said, we're gonna assign this every year through 2026. But really, you should be
We should-
changing, because the needs of the district can change
Mhm.
very, very quickly.
In each budget season, we could change the assignments.
You could,
Mhm.
So we, okay,
you could always
The-
make recommendations to the school committee to change fund balance.
okay.
The line for the auditorium repairs and upgrades,
Mhm.
right, so that right now has an assigned line, is that say 50,000?
Yeah.
But there's nothing there from FY '26.
So this is the money that's up above, so that's so what I did, this where it says total fiscal '26, if assigned, it would be the same as what's already there, because I didn't assign anything to it during the budget cycle, because we had said, okay, we need to worry about seeding other non-bond related items, so those smaller areas, those more specific things, instead of putting money in fiscal '26 for those, we put it in the non-bond related things. That's not to say that next year, if we had a surplus again, or whatever, you know, however it is, that you can't go back and then say that, you know, add funds to those line items. It's not that there's no money in them, it's just that this year we're saying we have other priorities that we need to fund
And we're just
and
not
start
adding
building.
money to them. Okay.
We're just not adding money to them, but again, this was my suggestion, it certainly doesn't have to be, like, if anybody thinks that we need to do it a different way, by all means.
No, I think that explains it. All right, I'm gonna recap what we discussed, and we will make just a motion that kind of for Leslie Ann to consider this. So as the anticipated turf replacement increased to 75,000, add a CTE program, non-technology capital,
No, back up, increase to 150. the
increase,
turf.
We're gonna add
Add
75,000 to the
Add
original
75,
recommendation.
so increase it to 150.
oh, I should have just said add, sorry. All right, let me see, add 75, I have it in mind. Okay, I'll read that again. The turf replacement, add 75,000, so it'll increase to 150,000. Add CTE program, non-technology capital, start with $100,000 seeded, and then each year 75,000. Curriculum, start with 100,000 and then add 100,000 each year. Fleet upgrade, increase it to 150,000. So what's
Yeah,
the
same
fleet?
thing, like add
right now?
75 to have it be 150.
100,000 to be 150. Add athletic capital line, 100,000 to start, and then 25,000 each year. And then the playground, reseed 100,000, and then each year 35,000. And then the reserves for library, media repair and upgrades, increase, add the 25,000 each year.
Add 25,000 or 100,000? I'm sorry, I thought,
The previous allocation approved had been 100, but it looks like we only did 25 in fiscal year
Each year.
25. So I'm not sure.
I think we did that before we started using the allocation,
Okay.
that allocation sheet.
Okay,
So do we
So
wanna?
I had it to get it to 100,000. That's what I wrote, but I could be wrong.
Oh, all right, I had just leaving it that each year we'll put 25,000 in.
I think I'll go with 25.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
think some of that's already gonna be done through the
For the
bond.
CIP.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we have to, like, I mean, we're not bringing it to the school committee, but we could still, like, make a,
Oh, no, I thought we were.
Yeah,
bringing
we
this-
will,
We are
yeah.
bringing this.
We
to
will,
the
all right,
committee.
so-
We need to make a recommendation to the school committee.
okay,
how we're
so
going to
this is the
allocate.
motion to the school committee. Can I have someone?
Second.
Okay, I'll say I did it first. Jen, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, and I'm gonna ask a side thing. Which meeting should I put this on, the 2:10? Or,
Mhm.
okay.
I can, well, not quickly, but I can try and put together a document similar to what I did last year during the budget cycle that showed this. I can
Yep.
try and do it for tomorrow night.
Do we have, capital on the, we do, we don't, we do?
For tornado?
Kind of.
Yeah, it's on the.
Yeah, it is, yeah, it is, yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to get it done in time, to be honest, but if I can.
Why don't you just wait till Tuesday?
Yeah.
One less thing for.
You mean for, you wanna put this on, we can't put this on tomorrow night's meeting.
No, that's why I was putting this on for
Yeah.
2:10.
Right.
Not to put it on the agenda, but I can create a working document for us, similar to what I did last year during budget cycle, so we can see.
Why don't we do it for 2:10?
Okay,
Yeah, cause
That's fine by
otherwise,
me.
someone might change it tomorrow and then that'll
Yeah.
get all
Yeah.
confusing,
Yep.
so.
likelihood of me getting it done tomorrow. Let's be real.
Okay, and then the next was the enterprise funds.
I'm just looking at the time, I have to leave here at 6 to go
Okay.
somewhere.
Sure, do you wanna pop down to 7?
Okay, so,
8 or 7 or 8?
Yeah, I think we need to discuss that.
okay, so why don't we table the enterprise funds and special revenue fund to the meeting on the 23rd?
Well,
Well-
correct me if I'm wrong,
We're
you
presenting
have
them
to
tomorrow.
present,
Oh, you're planning tomorrow.
you have to
Alright.
present
Okay,
your budget to the town on the 11th. The meeting on the 10th is the final initial school committee approved budget to forward to the town.
We have to get it to the town by the 23rd, I believe.
well,
Yes,
which,
yes,
okay.
23rd.
So,
Mhm.
alright,
So that's our last meeting, yes.
Well, we have another meeting on there if we need it, which we
Right.
probably will. I'm just-
Okay?
now,
My simple question is, are we having another meeting before the school committee must forward the budget to the town?
when's the
we're
school
not, the
meeting
next
starts?
one is the 23rd, so we're not.
So we will not be providing any advice on any of the budget elements except for the general fund.
Well, I am going to be bringing up at the 217 meeting that the school committee needs another meeting,
The
because there's
2:10 meeting,
the 210 meeting.
or tomorrow?
I can't bring it up tomorrow because it's not on the agenda. Because there's no way we're gonna be ready to vote on the 10th.
Oh, yeah, we don't have one on the 7th.
That still doesn't help, like, the 23rd part, but I'm just saying, there's no way that the school committee's gonna be ready to vote on the 10th.
But in a discussion about the budget, we can say we need another meeting
Yeah,
tomorrow.
okay.
Well, I don't know if this makes it easy, but in terms of the enterprise funds, I don't have nutrition here, so it's just the only 3 enterprise funds that are moving forward into fiscal 27, and they're pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's why I think the time left in this meeting would be better served talking about briefly something that is more, like, less fixed than those two. That's just my opinion. Sherry, what do you think?
No, I'm fine, I mean, unless you had something quick.
Do you have
No,
specific
no, I
questions?
don't.
And I'm
Well-
happy to answer if you have specific questions, I know.
No, because we haven't had time to look at them. We just got it at 3:30, 4 o'clock. So I guess my general point is, we went through this last year of saying, is the purpose of this committee to look at everything the school committee's got a thing and give advice, or? I mean, I guess, yes, we should move on. It's already 5:45, and the special revenue funds, we're not gonna look at either. So it's just a general comment of, we had the same issue last year. So, but you're right, so you just move on to 7, 8, whatever item we think is best in the next 10 minutes.
Do we have capital request to the town on the agenda for tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes, so why don't we move on to that so that we can hopefully make a recommendation to the school committee?
Yeah. My recommendation is that the school committee make an actual capital request to the town. And it would align with some of these items of the capital items that fit into a recurring but non-operating budget cycle. I think you should just be putting the 150 for the turf track, the fleet upgrade, like those should just be a standard request to the town, because right now your plan is to fund it by fund balance every year, which essentially means you run surpluses, which either means you over budgeted or were efficient or some combination of all those, when instead really working with the town, it should be, there's a certain level, 500 to 750,000, you should just get as capital every year, as opposed to trying to squeeze it out of the budget or put stuff in the budget that probably will run a surplus and then do this this thing every year.
I would just, based on the capital and what I presented to asset management and what we talked about at the school committee meeting back in December, work that we've identified that needs to be done for next year around the schools, and this was shared with both asset management and school committee. We have a preliminary capital improvement budget need of $767,000. And that's just identifying work at the building levels that need or should be done.
Does that include the boilers?
That
Mhm.
includes,
Do you have that file? Could you put that up maybe? You don't?
It's in the presentation that's on the budget drive, it's in
it
the one
does
that
not
you made.
include
I know,
the-
but
it does not
everyone,
include the
the
boilers
committee
at the
members
school.
don't have.
It's
that.
on the,
Hold on, I
it's
can,
on
I
our
can.
agenda, cause it was on the first budget meeting that we had.
It's in,
Oh, in the,
Hold on. Hold
oh,
on.
in the minutes.
It was on the town council meeting, it's on,
No, I know.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
I would have included it. So everyone had it.
trying to think what it's called, key preliminary budget presentation, right, the one you did to the town, Ken,
It was,
from 12:15.
yes.
All right, is it this?
No.
Hold
If
on,
not, I
hold
can
on,
share this right now.
Hold on, hold on.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Can you?
These, right here.
Yeah, those.
It's that.
Oh, all right, so it is.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's in the,
Never
it's in
mind.
your packet,
I was
actually.
looking at yours with the yellow.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so it's on the minutes from the first one.
right, Ken, but I'd say some of these, like, the heating pump for $3,000, like, that should just come out of your operating budget. I would say the things like the masonry work, well, that's, I can't see all of it.
So that's
Thing.
my,
But the small amount items, I don't think you should be asking formally for the town for capital. Like 3,000 here, like that should come out. But a hot water heater, a boiler, a bus, like those things, if you, you should be asking for the town. Like again, you have playground equipment here, 100,000. You just budgeted stuff in your fund balance. I think at some point, the discussion is, should the town be responsible for the recurring major items the district needs to operate? Or do you constantly wanna squeeze every year it out of surplus?
Ken, is this, the exterior courtyard door on DMS, is that gonna be taken care of as part of the, no, this is all in addition to the CIP, correct?
This is in addition.
I mean, cause I agree with Bob, like, you don't wanna ask for $3,000, right? But like, the flue piping for $216, the hot water heater for $75, the tennis courts for $230, like, I mean, my recommendation would be to ask, like, for those big dollar items. Cause you've specifically identified them here and say, these are the things that we need capital for this year.
And then I know what you're saying about, is like to add things like the turf and track, or even the playground, cause ultimately,
Right,
the
'cause
schools use it, but any kids can go technically after school hours and play on the playground.
Right, my point is, the turf and track complex is a shared responsibility, town and school, since it's on the school stuff, and by state law, the school has command and control, and the school committee has command and control over it, but everyone knows you're gonna need 1.5 to 2 million sometime in the next 5 years, roughly. Like, that should just be something the town every year gives you as capital to ensure that you're putting it towards that, right, point, as opposed to, like you said, any future school committee can raid any of the notional things except the 2%.
Mhm.
So, I would say like a boiler, a bus or a van, the chunk for the depreciation of the turf and track. Those should be the things you should be asking for. And then say, okay, if you don't give it to us, then we have to squeeze it out of fund balance, and if we don't have it in fund balance, then so be it.
Yeah, I can go through, I can update what our priorities are. to be able to submit this to the town.
I think what Bob's saying
Yeah,
though is
just
don't
it,
ask
so-
for a specific project. He's saying, give us
Just an amount.
1.5 million and this is the way
Mhm.
we're gonna allocate it and we'll dip into it as needed.
And the promise is, we're not gonna come back to you for money for the turf and track field, or, right? Yeah, that would be my suggestion, Kenny, but I do understand if you might say, well, we know we need a boiler next year. You probably need a boiler or a heater every year, I'm guessing, if you look at your historical trend. So just say, like, every year we need a boiler, every year we need this amount, and every year we wanna buy a bus or a van.
Can I ask a question?
And just say, let's just put that as, you know, whatever it reasonably comes to, because obviously the town is also strained, like, I think 1.5 million is too much, but somewhere around 700,000 is, I think, a reasonable when you sort your priorities.
So I wrote down 600,000, just kind of eyeing this list here and just kind of thinking of some of the items that you've just mentioned. And so we could put that into a request of 600,000, and asking if we can get 600,000 each year. You know, in the past, they gave 500,000.
Out of a $1.5 million ask. So if you ask for 6, you might end up with 3.
Right, so I'm
Just keep that in
asking,
mind.
when you ask, like, do they expect you to only spend on the stuff you ask for, or can we just ask them for an amount like Bob
Well, what
says,
happens
and then
is
we don't,
this
and then,
goes to, this went to asset management, so then they go and they create their priority list of the entire town of what they should be dedicating
Okay.
for capital across the town.
okay.
Well, in theory, you could spend, the school committee could spend it on what it needs to,
That's what I was asking.
but I think the good faith is going, if you give it to us as capital, so it's not in your general operating fund, it's not in your maintenance of effort, we are going to use it on capital. I think the motion should simply be that the committee recommends that the school committee send a capital request to the town in an amount to be recommended by the superintendent.
Right, motion.
The school committee and superintendent
Can you say that again? Sorry. Motion capital request
to the town
to the
in
town.
an amount to be recommended by the superintendent. And then the school committee can do with that what they wish.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Someone wanna make a motion to adjourn?
Can I, one general point on FY '27 budget?
Yep.
I don't know if you fixed it, Leanne, but the point I made about the merit pay,
Yes, it's all set.
okay. Well, I just did, in the public document,
Thank you.
just a general suggestion, I would say as a member of the public representing the community, is that the stuff that's in the public presentation is a PDF, some of it's things, some of it you gotta do counterclock, like, could you separately just post on somewhere, whether it's your business, the super, somewhere, like, post just the actual Excel file and the clean version, because as a member of the public, I'm sure you as a board agenda get something else, but what you put in the public right now is difficult to read. You have to do you have to flip counterclockwise twice. Like, could there just be a clean document for the public?
I mean, other than the two salary pieces that you're talking about, those are the only ones that are, I know, a little askew when we do it. But
It's just not easy to read. I guess my point is, can we make it for the public who may wanna make comment, an easy way to do it? I mean, I don't think it's any big surprise. You're just taking from your Excel file.
but the Excel, that is what the public gets, the Excel file
Yeah,
is.
I know what
I was gonna say,
Bob is saying, though,
just give the
I get
Excel
what he's
file.
saying, is just, whatever we upload, can we just make it so people can open it and not having to,
But they
Yes.
won't, that's what I'm saying, is that the document that I have, most of the public will not be able to open it because of the size and complexity of it. The easiest
Yeah,
way
but-
for it to be up there is in a PDF.
Yeah, I can't.
Right.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, no,
It-
and I-
the
I'm not-
file
and
is so
I'm sorry.
complex
I mean,
that
It will
it's
crash
just-
her.
It will crash the
Not-
computers.
And I
not
also
the
think putting even
file.
a view-only file of the budget out there gives me the heebie-jeebies,
Yeah,
right?
what I'm saying is, we can clean up the PDF, I think, from what you're saying, right? So that
Okay,
way it
sure.
lines up, so when you open it, it's easier.
And I know I have said this, and I promise I'm not
Also,
gonna say this for the
we have
next
to scan
25
it
years.
also, because-
The way the salary information is presented in the budget right now is because of how the salary information has to be taken out of our financial system and how it has to be kind of worked with to get it in a way. I am typically very used to presenting my salary budget information within each page of the document. So you see, this is the salaries tied to curriculum, these are the salaries tied to each of the schools, these are the salaries tied to central admin. It's like all in the same budget sheet so that it's not, so you can get a clear picture and then it rolls up into one easy to read kind of dashboard that you see. Unfortunately, my two sheets that I have do not work with each other. So that is, so essentially I take the dashboard out of the salary sheet and put it in the budget document for the public. It has all of the same information. It's just the easiest way to present it, but I can work on it to make it so that it's easier to, understand and read. I mean, that's, it just takes time to do that, and I've just been more focused on actually getting the budget completed as opposed to, that, but I can work with it. But, and the, I know I mentioned this in one of my documents, what were you referring to with the merit pay? That was a typo on my part, to be perfectly honest. I carried over from one sheet to the other the total amount on the line item as opposed to the individual amounts, so it was overcounting it.
Correct. So I guess my question is,
So-
did you lower the town appropriation by the over?
It will automatically, and so my spreadsheet, and any corrections, any changes we make automatically adjust. The town appropriation is tied to being an outcome of revenues and expenses balancing, so any adjustments we make to either will automatically adjust the town appropriation.
Okay.
I have it set
Thank
up
you.
that way so that as we work through it, it makes those adjustments easily configured.
That's it? Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.